Hi guys, this is Rohit Farmer, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use Neovim or Vim text editor for our programming language. And for that purpose I have created this gist. You can find the link to this GitHub gist in the description of this video below. And for today's tutorial, the platform that I'm working on is Linux Mint, that is based on Ubuntu 18.04, and I have also written this tutorial primarily for Linux based system. It may or may not work on Mac and Windows. I'm pretty confident that it's going to work on Mac, but I'm not sure if it's going to work on Windows. So Vim is a very popular text editor that comes almost with every Linux based system pre-installed, and Neovim is a newer cousin of VIM Editor. So it's a separate software, but it follows the same philosophy and the commands are interchangeable. So whatever commands you use in Vim text editor, you can also use in Neovim text editor. So I personally use Neovim text editor, and in this tutorial also I'm going to show you everything in Neovim text editor. In short, it's also called NVIM. So both Neovim and Vim are plain text editors. So when you install them, other than writing text, they do not have any capability to do syntax coloring for any of the programming languages, and they do not have any capability to execute code from within the text editor environment. And when we talk about IDEs, then we want a system where we can not only write code, but we can also execute our code from within the same system. In addition to executing code, we also want to have places or windows or panels in our software from where we can see the objects that we have created, like variables, data frames, table. We also want a place where we can see our help files or documentation, and also a place from where we can browse files. If you are familiar with RStudio or Visual Studio Code, on the left hand side you see a panel where there is a list of all the files and folders within your project folder, and then you have a text editor portion where you write your text, where you write your code, and then there is a console where you can see the output when you execute the code. And then there are also separate windows where you can see vignettes or help files or documentation files. So in both of these text editor or any of the plain text editor, these things do not come out of box. It means we will have to tweak some settings or use some kind of a plugin system to give these capabilities to these editors. So in case of Vim and Neovim, they both have excellent plugin systems. So there are various third-party plugins that you can use to enhance these softwares. So for R, there's a very famous plugin called Nvim-R. So this plugin is going to give us a connection between the text editor and the R console. So we will write our R script in the text editor, and when the time comes to execute it, Nvim-R will help us to send the code from the text editor to the R console. And we can also see the console within the Vim text editor environment. So it's not like that it's going to go in a different window or in a different terminal. Everything is going to happen within the same terminal or within the same Neovim session. So if you look at the top of the gist, I have written some of the requirements. These are not the requirements of the Neovim or Vim itself. These are the requirements of the plugin that we are going to use. So these are the requirements of the Nvim-R plugin. So for this plugin to work, obviously you need to have an R installation, but that should be greater than or equal to 3.0.0. You also need either Neovim or Vim. So for Neovim, you should have an installation greater than 0.20, and for Vim, it should be greater than or equal to 8.1. In addition to the above mentioned requirements, we also need a plugin manager. So for this tutorial, I'm going to use Vim plugin manager. There are other plugin managers also available, but I personally use this plugin manager and it works. In addition to Nvim-R plugin, I'm also going to show you other 5 plugins that we are going to use to make things even better for us. So the second plugin that I'm going to use is Nvim-R, that is based on NCM2. NCM2 was developed for Python and somebody ported it for R. So this plugin is useful for synchronous autocompletion. So if you have used RStudio or Visual Studio Code, you must have noticed that when you write the code as you are writing, it shows you options to autocomplete what you have partially written. So Nvim-R also comes with auto-completion capabilities, but it is not synchronous. It means you have to type some keys to switch it on and off. Nerd-Tree will add capabilities to have a file browser within the Vim session. So when we toggle Nerd-Tree, we can see our file browser at the left-hand side of the screen, from where we can go to different files and folders. Delimit provides auto-completion or automatic closing of quotes, parentheses, and brackets. So every programming language has a system of brackets and parentheses, and text editors by default do not do this auto-completion for you. So if you put the left bracket, it's not going to put the right bracket for you. And the last two plugins I have in the list, Monokai TST and Lightline, are only for aesthetic reasons, so they would give us a color scheme. This is a minimal functional setup that I use in my everyday development environment. You can add many more plugins to make it more sophisticated. So if you follow the procedure, then the first thing that we have to make sure is that we have our installation that is greater than equal to 3.0, and we also have to make sure that we have Neovim installed that is greater than equal to 0.2. So if I open my terminal and type R, then I have R version 3.6.3, and if I type NVIM, then I have Neovim version 0.2.2. So they both satisfy the minimum requirement that we have for Nvim-R plugin. The next thing we have to do is to install a plugin manager. To install this plugin manager, all you have to do is copy these 2 lines of code and paste it in your terminal and press enter. So it is gonna download the Vim plugin manager and install it for you. So once you have installed the plugin manager, we have to install the plugins. For Vim Editor, we create .vim-rc file in our home environment, and that's the file where we place all our settings and information related to plugins. For Neovim text editor, we need to have an init.vim file in this .config/nvim folder in our home folder. So because, as I said earlier in this video, that I'm going to use Neovim in this tutorial, I'll have to create init.vim file in this particular folder. And once I have created this init.vim file, at the very top of the file, I would put these lines of code that would tell the Vim plugin manager what are the plugins that I want to install. So at the very top, you can see this call plug begin, which actually tells the plugin manager to start, and it also tells which folder that I want plugin manager to download the plugins and install. So I'm going to use .vim/plugged folder in my home folder. So Vim plugin manager suggests that don't use any standard Vim directory, for example names like plugin, because it may conflict with the vanilla Vim environment. So Vim plugin manager has more than one way in which you can define what are the plugins that you want to install. I'm going to use shorthand notation. So in shorthand notation, you start a line with the keyword plug, followed by within single quotes the name of the author and the name of the GitHub repository. So the plugin manager is going to download this plugin or repository from GitHub and install the plugin for us. And then at the end, we'll have to initialize the system. So if I just copy these lines and paste it in our init.vim file, so that has to be in .config/nvim folder. So I'll type nvim.config/init.vim. So this is our Neovim editor, and right now you can see that there are no line numbers, and the status line is also just black and white. So at the very top, I'll paste the lines that I have just copied from my gist, and I'm gonna save and quit. I'm going to open it again, and I'll ask the plugin manager to install these plugins for me. So for Vim plugin manager, the command to install plugins is plug install. So as you can see, it has downloaded the plugin and installed it for us. So this is for the first time install, but later on you would also want to update these plugins at some point. So the command to update the plugins is plug update. And now because we have just installed these plugins, all the plugins are already updated. But if you do it in a month or 2 months time, then you would see that some of the plugins have updated, and it's going to update it for you. So our plugins are installed. And right now I'm going to show you what you would get with just the plugins without tweaking them or adding any more additional functionality to our Neovim environment. So for that, I'm going to create a project folder. So Nvim-R-demo, that's our project folder. Usually when I create a project, I create a scripts directory. I also create a data directory where my data would go, and results directory for results, and figures directory for figures. And in my project folder, I'm also going to create an init.r file. So this is initialize r. I'm going to tell you why I'm doing this. Instead of placing this script in the scripts folder, why I'm placing it right in the project's root folder. Now you can see at the bottom the status line is colored. Earlier it was just black and white. The line numbers are still not there because they are not part of the plugins that we have installed. This is something that we have to switch on in the Neovim environment. But Nvim-R should be working. So if I type \rf, that is the shortcut to trigger Nvim-R, then you can see on the right hand side of the screen we have the R console. And if you are aware with VIM split screen system, then to navigate from one portion of the screen to the other portion of the screen, you use Control W and then L, K, J, H, depending upon which portion of the screen you want to go. So if you want to go from left to right, it will be Control W, L. So now we are in the R console portion. And at the bottom you can see that we are in the normal mode. If I want to type something to this R console, I have to go into insert mode. So I'll type I. But because this is a terminal, it's not a text editor, it doesn't say insert mode, rather than it says terminal mode. But I can type over here. So if I want to load, for example, a library, I can say tidyverse, library tidyverse, and press enter, and it's going to load a library for us. I can navigate back to the text editor portion by typing Control WH, and now I'm in the text editor portion. I can press I and go to insert mode, and I can again type something over here. So we have a text editor portion, we have R console. We also want to test whether nerd tree is working or not. So for that, the command is :nerd tree toggle. On the left hand side, you can see we have a tree with the folders that you can navigate through your arrow key. To close it, we'll again type nerd tree toggle. So you can see that nerd tree toggle is a big command. Every time you have to, if you want to open nerd tree, you'll have to type this big command. So we can actually shorten it, and that's what we're gonna do in the later part of the video. But before that, I want to show what vanilla autocompletion comes with Nvim-R. So if I have just written libr, and if I want to do autocompletion, I would type Control XO, and this is going to show me a list of all the options that I have. So library, and at the top of this screen you can also see that there is a description. There's a description of this of the option that I have selected from the list. So this is not synchronous. It does not appear when I type it, but it will appear when I press Control X and O, right? And once you have selected, you also can see the description, but this doesn't go away once you have already selected the option. So it means you have to navigate to this portion of the screen and close it explicitly. So you can see that autocompletion works, but it is not synchronous, and it's also a little bit annoying because you have to type so many keys, and you also have to close a split screen. So we are going to fix it. So I want to quit this. So to quit the R console, I'll type \RQ, and then I also quit everything from here. So to add more functionality to Neovim, we have to edit init.vim file. So let's open our init.vim file, go at the very bottom and then here I'm going to copy and paste what I have in the gist. But before I do that, let me explain what are the new functionalities I'm trying to add. So before we tweak any other setting, I want to set a local leader. So a local leader is an alphabet or a keystroke that you type first before you give a command. For example, in Microsoft Word, you press Ctrl S to save. So for Neovim Nvim-R plugin, backslash is the local leader, but for other plugins that we have installed, there is no default local leader. So I'm going to make a local leader for my own setup, and this can be anything. So I have chosen comma for this particular tutorial and for my personal setup, but you can choose any other keystroke that you want. Here are the settings for the plugins. So the very first is NCM2, that is our Synchronous Autocompletion plugin. These two lines, you have to have them. I don't know much in detail what they're gonna do. You can go to their you can go to its GitHub repository and see what they exactly do, but I know that if you copy these two, it's gonna work. If you don't, it's not gonna work. So I just put it over here. For nerd tree, because you have already seen that you have to type this long command to toggle nerd tree file browser, I have made a shortcut that is leader, which is comma followed by NN. So if I press comma NN, it's going to toggle nerd tree. And I also want to make the color scheme in the VIM environment to this Monokai Tasty, and I also want my light line, the status line, to follow the same coloring scheme. So I have everything, the code, the console, and the light line following the same color scheme. Then these are some of the general Neovim or Vim settings. They have nothing to do with the plugins that we have just installed. Even if you don't have any of these plugins and you put these settings in your init.vim or .vimrc file, they're gonna work. So I'm doing mouse integration. It means that when I'm in the insert mode, my mouse is going to work. So if I click somewhere in the text editor, my cursor will move to that particular position. By default, mouse doesn't work in a terminal based text editor. For tab navigation, so in addition to split screen in VIM or Neovim, you can also have multiple tabs the way you have in a web browser. So again, these commands are really long. So :tab new to open a new tab, :tab n to switch to the next tab, and tab p to switch to the previous tab. So I've made some shortcuts. So nt new tab, it opens a new tab. So you have to press comma nt to open the new tab, and then comma tn to move to the new next tab, and then comma tp to move to the previous tab. Then these are some of the settings for line numbers and indentation. I want line number to be showed, and I also want my indentation to be taken care smartly. So if there is an indent that's needed, it should be there. And then these are some of the settings for search. So ignore cases, do a smart case search, and then if I want to search something, then that particular keyword should also be highlighted where the match is. And this setting would enable to show the brackets. So it will show the matching brackets or matching braces. This is not the setting that's going to put the matching bracket automatically. For that we have delimit made, but it is just going to highlight what are the matching brackets are. I do not want any error bells to ring because I make a lot of errors and it's annoying. And I also want to enable UTF character encoding and syntax color coding. Then I don't want any of the swap files to be made by Vim or Neovim, no backups, because I create my own backup, so I don't want Vim to do it for me. And this line is going to make sure that when I reopen the same script, then the cursor, the position of the cursor is going to be where I left it in my previous sessions. So I'm going to copy all of this in one go and paste it to our init.vim file, and I'm going to save and quit here. Okay, now that I have copied all the settings to init.vim file, I can go to my project directory and start writing some R scripts. So in my project directory, I have a scripts folder where I'm going to place all my R scripts. So let's create an R script. But I'm not going to open this R script from within the scripts folder, and I'll show you the reason why. So I'm going to open init.r from the project root folder, and from here I'm going to trigger my R console by typing \rf. So if I go to our terminal and type get wd to get the path to my working directory, you can see that the working directory is my project root folder. But if I would have gone to the scripts folder and opened the script from the scripts folder, then the scripts folder would have become the working directory and not the project root folder, and that will become annoying if you want to use the relative path to data and results and other folders within the project root folder. And that's why in my projects I always create an empty init.r file in the project's root folder and open it first, trigger the R console, and then use nerd tree to navigate to other files that I have in my project structure. So now that the R is initialized, I would toggle nerd tree. So now the shortcut for nerd tree is "nn." So I'm going to type "nn," and you can see we have the nerd tree toggled over here. So I will navigate to scripts folder and open test.r script. I can close file browser, and so this is an empty script for us. Let's start typing. The first thing I want to notice is the synchronous autocompletion. Let's see whether it's working or not. So insert mode and then library. Yes, it's working. So now you don't have to press Ctrl XO to do the autocompletion. It's gonna do it for you as you type. So you can see that in this list you have the name of something. So whatever you were typing, it's gonna show you a matching name, and then it will also tell you what it is. So here it says that it's a function, and it's gonna, what it does, it's loading, attaching, and listing of packages. So you can choose your option, press enter, and it will autocomplete it for you. Which package I want to load? I want to load tidyverse. So I'm gonna go at the very bottom and choose tidyverse over here. So this is how synchronous autocompletion works. So this is our first line in the script. We want to execute it. So to execute just one line, you have to press escape. You have to go to the normal mode from insert mode and then type \d. So it's going to execute the line on which the cursor is and then move the cursor to the next line. And you can see that this library tidyverse that is in our text editor moved to the R console and it ran it for us. The rest of the code I have already written in the gist, so I'm gonna just copy it and show you the different features. So I'm gonna copy and paste it over here. So these top comments are just for me so that I make sure that I have explained you everything. So I have already showed you, if you want to open an R console, you have to type \rf. If you want to close it, you have to type \rq. \ro is to open object browser. So we do not have many objects right now. So once I have created a couple of objects, I'll show you how you can visualize those objects in an object browser. To execute one single line, as I showed you, that you have to type \d. To execute a selection, a bunch of code, like a block of code that you have selected, /ss. And if you want to execute the entire file like you do in RStudio by pressing the source button, then you have to type \aa. So let's execute these two lines by typing we have to go to the normal mode first and then type \d. So I'm loading Midwest database data set from ggplot2, and I'm going to make a plot. Okay, so now this is a block. So I'm gonna select all these lines together and execute them as a selection rather than one line at a time. So for that, I'll press V and go to visual mode and then just use my arrow key to select all the lines together and then type \ss to execute them as a selection. So \ss, and in the R terminal you can see Nvim-R.selection. So it has executed it, but because there is no output to this code, it's not showing anything else in the terminal. But we can see we should have a plot. So because it has created a ggplot object, probably this is the right time to toggle the object browser. So if I press \RO, we can see what are the objects that are created in this script so far. So these are the variables. So this is the ggplot object. If you press enter here, it's going to actually expand and show you all the elements that a ggplot object has. This is pretty handy, and you can actually for example go to PID and press enter, and it's going to show you whatever data is within that variable. And this is the data set that we have loaded. So if I press enter over here, it's going to expand and show me all the columns of this particular data frame. And if I click on one of the columns, it will actually show me a portion of the data that's available in that column. And this object browser not only shows you the object, but it also shows you the libraries that you have loaded. So these are the libraries that were loaded when I loaded tidyverse library. So we have toggled it on. We can switch it off also by again pressing \RO, and it's gonna go away. So we already have the ggplot object. Let's see if we can plot the plot. So I'll go to this line and press \D, and this will open an external window for me, and we have the plot over here. So this is very similar to RStudio. In RStudio, you have a section in the software itself where you can visualize plots, and this is also the same. You can visualize it. You can't save it from here. Like if I right click my mouse here, I don't get any option to save it. So you will have to type like gg save and save it properly in a location. But this is pretty useful if you just want to visualize plot very quickly. So this Midwest data set is a population data set, and in this particular plot we have plotted area on x-axis and population on y-axis. These dots show how dense those populations are, and this window actually works over SSH also. So if you are connecting to a remote machine and if you have X11 forwarding, then you can actually get this plot forwarded to your terminal through X11 forwarding. So it's not that it will only work when you are on your machine. You can work on a remote machine, and then you can also visualize. You can still visualize these plots. Now how fast these plots are going to load will depend upon how fast your internet speed is, and also how complicated your plot is. So now one thing that I also want to show in terms of synchronous autocompletion over here is I'm gonna delete this line and I'll start retyping it again. So if I do Midwest, so yep, that's the table that we have just loaded. I want to use it, and if I press $, it's going to give me a list of all the variables in this table. So this is pretty useful. So you don't have to go to the R console and type call names and to get the name of all the columns. It's you type $, and it's gonna show you all the column names. So if I just choose county, it will select for me. And the good thing is that it, in addition to the name of the variable, it also shows what type of variable it is. So what type of values are there in that particular column, integer, character, factor, stuff like that. In RStudio, we also have a way to visualize an entire data frame. So here you can type view and the name of the data frame or table, and then go to normal mode and type \D to run it, and you will get an external window where you can see the data frame. The data that you would see in this external window is fixed to the size of your screen. You can't scroll up and down, and if you have like hundreds and thousands of columns, then probably you can only see the columns that would fit in that window. So far we have executed our code either line by line or by selecting a bunch of code. We can also execute the entire file in one go by typing \AA. So this is going to execute the entire file in one go. So we have the plot also, and also the data frame in this external window. And so whenever you trigger something over here, a command, it actually goes to the R console and you can see what it has done. Now the last thing, or one of the last thing that I want to show is how to get help and where it's going to show you. So if I go to R console, type $, and for example I want to see help for ggplot, so you will get another window that will show you the documentation for the help that you have asked for. So you can see it within the same terminal session or within the same VIM session. So sometimes it opens like this, it will split the screen horizontally, sometimes it opens vertically. So I think it depends upon how big your screen is. The computer that I have in my office, it has a 27-inch monitor, so it splits vertically most of the time, but here in my home computer it is splitting horizontally. So you can go through the help file, and when you want to close this split screen, you just type Ctrl+Q and it's going to close it, and you will come back to your code. We can also work with tabs. So if you want to have a tab, so this tabs will appear over here. According to our shortcut, you have to type "NT" to open a new tab. So I'll type "NT" and it will open a new tab for me. Nvim will also work in the tab. So if I press now "NN", it will toggle the Nvim for me, and I can open, for example, init.r file in this tab. I can close my Nvim. Now I have two files open simultaneously in the same terminal or in the same VIM environment, and you can go back and forth in between the tabs. So if I press "TN", it will go to the next tab, and if I press "TP", it will go to the previous tab. I can write code in tabs also. For example, if I want to load another library here, stats, and if I want to execute it, so what will happen, it will execute in the R console that is attached to the previous tab. So you can only have R console attached to one tab. You can have multiple tabs with different R scripts, and you can execute them from there, but it will only run in the R console that is attached to the first tab. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. And one of the main reasons I use this system is because I work on remote machines. So the computer that is on my desk in my office is just a terminal. I connect to an HPC, and that HPC serves as my interactive development environment and also running scripts in batch mode. So running RStudio on an HPC and then viewing it on your computer through X11 forwarding is not very good, and so therefore I find this setup, running everything within a terminal, more suitable over SSH. So I SSH to my HPC and then open a screen session, and within that screen session I set up this environment, so even if my connection breaks, my script keeps on running within this environment. And this is also very useful if you use Singularity container. So I use Singularity containers for all of my projects. So whenever I have a new project, I would create a Singularity container for that particular project with a fixed R version, with fixed package versions, and this helps me for reproducibility of my project. And I also install Neovim inside the Singularity container, and the good thing is you can install Neovim inside the Singularity container and still use init.vim file that is installed in your home environment on the HPC. So you don't have to put init.vim also inside the Singularity container. So it's easy to change it as much as you want or whenever you need it. So I usually create a Singularity container for every project and then do the development from within the Singularity container. So everything is fixed for versions and it helps from reproducibility point of view. And I'm going to make another video in which I'll show how you can compile a Singularity container with Neovim and how you can set up this environment inside the Singularity container. So thank you for watching this video. And as I have said earlier, that I have placed the link to this just in the description below. And please let me know any questions that you have, either here in the comment section or in the comment section of the video itself. I'll try to answer it. And once again, thank you for watching.